Couple of moves being made by the Seattle Seahawks today, actually a few moves, as it is the tag day across the league. Guys getting franchised, transition tagged all over the place. But a couple of moves being made that are raising some eyebrows up in Seattle. Not a surprise that Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs both released today by the Seattle Seahawks. But a little bit of, okay. Seattle has released Will Dissly as well to clear up some salary cap space as well. The move to clear Dissly is $7 million in salary cap space, while Diggs and Adams clear $27.5 million. If you're good at mathing there, which I am not, but I can math this, that's $34.5 million that the Seahawks have cleared by cutting those three guys.
A lot of gauge.
It also, though, is leading to you've got a massive hole in the back end of your defense now.
The entire back end of your defense is gone. But you also may want to take a look at what else is out there in free agency as well, because there's so many players hitting free agency right now. And Seattle has, we'll get into their draft capital. They have most of their draft capital, although they did use some of it up for Leonard Williams in the trade this last season.
They got 7 picks, every round except for the second round, but you get 2 third-rounders. You have the 78th and 81st pick.
Which, I mean, it might as well be back-to-back picks.
Yep. In the third round, where this draft is very deep. And so you can get guys that you can hopefully project into serviceable pros. But it is an interesting time, though, when you have to replace both of your safeties, both Jamal. And look, you don't really need to replace both of your safeties because Jamal Adams rarely played.
Yeah. Remember, they gave up all that capital for a guy that they thought was going to be really good. And then not only did he not play, he wasn't really great when he played.
And was not a good teammate.
And was a complete a-hole.
Yeah. I mean, look at this, though. Think of what...
Great trade by the Jets,
Jets... Yeah, the Jets give up Jamal Adams.
It turns into Garrett Wilson and... God, who was the one of the tackles?
It was a pair of first-round picks, and they gave up a fourth-round pick as well, just as kind of like the throwaway filler. This will make you feel... This will make you
sell
feel
this to
yourself.
Your fans.
But one of those picks did become Garrett Wilson.
Yeah. One of the better wide receivers in the league.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of freight even at the time. But Seattle was like, all right, if we're going to make this final push with the Russell Wilson era, we've got to do it, and we've got to do it right now. Well, it turned out not to be the good trade by any measure for the Seattle Seahawks. They didn't get what they wanted out of Jamal Adams. They didn't get nearly the production that they needed out of him, and he was a horrible teammate as well by most accounts up in Seattle. But then on the flip side of it, how quickly after that trade happened, what was that, in 2020? It was a training camp of 2020. Yeah. You give up that freight. He almost immediately gets injured, by the way. And you then, just 2 years later, deal Russell Wilson out, and you hit a reset on your entire franchise at that point. I mean, it was like the most short-sighted trade ever, where they went, we're pushing all into, we're pulling all out.
Yeah, and imagine if you would have had the additional draft capital there, how the position they would be right in, or they would be in right now going forward. And they're in a good spot. I mean, they got way more for Russ than they should have. That's for damn sure. They basically recouped the assets that they gave up to go get Jamal Adams, which then you kind of call it a bit of a wash, but you get a little bit of a back-end capital. But it wasn't just Garrett Wilson. It was Elijah Vera Tucker.
That's a pretty good one.
So the Jets turned those picks into Garrett Wilson and Elijah Vera Tucker, which... Yeah, I bet you the Seahawks would have rather have had those guys than Jamal Adams.
You're just thinking about with the draft that they did have 2 years ago, Seattle. Imagine being able to stack a couple of draft classes in a row. But this is the beauty and the beast of the NFL, in that you need to push all in. There is 100%. If you are in a winning situation and you have an aging quarterback, you need to pull the trigger, and you need to be bold in the moves that you make to try and get your team over the hump, because the window is so small to win in the NFL. They pulled the trigger, and if you're a Seahawks fan, you got to be like, okay, at least they win in on this.
No,
at least they made the move. But the scary part about all of that also is how quickly it can backfire, and you're in a reset mode as well.
But I don't know if I even call it scary. I think it's a good thing. The NFL is better at making parity more important than any other league. The NBA is trying. Major League Baseball, I don't really know how you can because the individual matchups, blah, blah, blah. But the NFL does it. And what the Seahawks did, I think you have to commend them on both sides. Is number one, they went in. And number two, when it was time to get out, they got the bleep out. Pulled the ripcord, full parachute. We're out. We're good. We're
just put your hands in the air.
Yeah, we're done. Okay, we're going to go ahead and reset now. No, look, they had the fun little season with Geno Smith.
Yeah.
But what are they doing right now? They're trimming all the fat right now. And now they're fully clearing their books so that they can retool and head it and get right at it again. They're going about this. Snyder is smart, man. He is. Like he is probably one of the most effective GMs in the league. Number one, when it comes to talent evaluation, but number two, about decisions. And just you look at where this organization has been. Snyder's been there for what, 13 years now?
Maybe, yeah. 2011 sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's 11 or 12, right around there. So look at where this organization has been. They've reset multiple times.
Yeah.
And how many times have they made the wrong decision? You can say the Jamal Adams one for sure. But how many drafts have they gotten right?
They've gotten a lot of drafts right, but it's also the idea that some of the moves that they've made in whether free agency hasn't worked out.
Matt Flynn it could be a perfect example going into
They have been draft and develop. Yeah. They have not been we're going to land the big free agent and it's going to work out in spades. I mean, Dwayne Brown was another guy where that was a big swing, and he was serviceable. Very short term though, and you turn him out, and boom, here you are again. But they're clearing the books now.
Yes,
the $34 million that they clear up in cap space. I mean,
what does that get them to total now?
I can't tell if they've updated this yet or not on Spot Track, but I believe they're going to double their free agency money that they have available, because Spot Track has right now $32 million available for the Seahawks to play with this offseason in cap space. And I was looking, and they still have Jamal Adams on their roster. So if that does come off and they clear this, if all of those moves, the Disley, Quandre Diggs, and Jamal Adams, then I believe they clear out quite a bit of space to just make it not even you're going to be a big player in free agency, but just make it palatable moving forward in a direction with your roster.
Yeah, because the rest of their contracts actually
they're
decent?
really good. They're in a really good spot right now.
Yeah, they really are. They really don't have any big money other than to DK and Geno, and both of them are going to be. I mean, Geno's a short term.
Yeah.
So, and Lockett's on the back end of his deal.
And Geno is not. It's not big money.
No, but I mean, I'm looking
for
basically
God's
anything
sakes.
over $20 million is kind of what I look at. It's those are decisions that need to be made.
That will be. This is the first sign for Mike McDonald in John Schneider and Mike McDonald era, joint at the hip, on just pulling the plug and saying, we all knew the Jamal Adams thing was coming. We had the inkling and the idea that Quandre Diggs was coming too. You've got guys behind him. In Julian Love and Jarek Reed that, serviceable. We're going to see, though, in this draft, I think the Seahawks are going to be really active in the draft. When you have 7 picks, when you have such a deep draft like this, is trading down in the first round to where, unless that guy is there, unless that one of those interior offensive linemen is there that you fall in love with and you don't think is going to be there if you trade back of 5 or 6 spots in the first round, but you have that luxury to do. Interior offensive line, you're needing edge rusher in a draft that is not edge heavy. But if you trade down in that first round and you can maybe acquire a second round pick out of it, do it.
Yes.
Go ahead and
absolutely.
get more starters out of this and sit there and do what you do best, John Schneider. Evaluate the talent and bring those guys in, and your books are going to be clean moving forward. Mm-hmm. You don't have a lot of money down the road, and the guys that you develop, you'll be able to pay moving forward. It's very reminiscent of what they did when Pete Carroll and John Schneider came in together.
Yeah, I was looking through the transaction history here. Disley and Diggs are both transactionally done, and I believe there was a note when I saw the Jamal Adams that he was on a post-New Year League New Year designation, and that's why it has not yet posted yet.
Yeah, I bet he'll be post June 1.
It might have been post June 1.
June 1 is where a lot of those numbers come down even further.
Yeah.
But as it is, the Seahawks, cleaning the books,
Yeah.
cleaning the books up, and getting ready to make a run. I would imagine they're going to be one of the more active teams come draft day because John Schneider,
That's what they do.
he is sharp as it comes, and if he falls in love with the guy in that second round, and you can make a trade where you can say Arizona wants to move up from 27, right? You drop 11 spots, you pick up a second round pick. That's probably a little bit too far. But if anybody wants to jump up ahead of any of the other teams, everything's in front of you,
Yes.
right where you are, because there's some really good teams behind them. Drafting at 16, I think the teams that are directly behind them in the draft are Jacksonville, Cincinnati, Rams, Steelers, Dolphins, Eagles. If you trade down with any of those teams, I don't think you're going to be getting a team that, jumps up and takes one of the spots that you're coveting. Maybe Philly with that interior offensive line,
But even
where
then,
with Jason Kelsey out, if they want to go and they
One of
want to
those
get
three
Jackson
first-
Powers
yeah.
Johnson, they want to get one of those centers. That's probably one of the guys that Seattle's going to covet too.
I could see a lot of teams looking at Seattle there going, they're not a team that is like has to have this guy or that guy, or they have plenty of needs.
Their interior offensive line is a big one, and they're loaded. This
But
draft
that's
is
what I'm saying,
loaded.
like, you can move back because there's potentially 3 first-round centers, and if you look at your board and you don't have that much differentiation between them, and you're able to go get an additional asset out of it, let's use the Eagles. Let's say you move back, 5 spots, and you recoup a third. That's worth it. If there's not any additional separation between the two.
I feel like they need to get in that second round. They need to get in that second round.
Yeah,
They need to have 1 and a 2.
I think it all depends
Yeah.
on what the value scaling is.
All right, tags being handed out across the league. It's not necessarily the guys who were franchise tag, but some of the guys that weren't.